Everybody, my name is Pioneer Productions, and today I will be talking about the migrant crisis in Europe. So, I am sure that this is a topic that many of you have already heard about, and I'm pretty sure that you already know quite a bit about it, but I'm going to be explaining it to you anyway, so some of you who don't know about it can gain a better understanding of it. So, as many of you know, the migrant crisis in Europe is essentially something that has happened very recently. It's essentially millions of Muslim migrants coming into Europe from the Middle East, mostly to escape civil unrest, theocratic oppression, ISIS, that kind of stuff. And the problem with this huge influx of refugees and migrants is the fact that they have brought some nasty stuff with them, such as a violent ideology that oppresses women, gays, and basically anyone who isn't a straight Muslim man. And that religion is Islam. What has happened recently is terrorist attacks in Europe have become the norm, not only because of all the migrants that have recently been flooding into the continent, but also because of the quite literally stupid policies made by the EU, which has essentially allowed thousands upon thousands of migrants to flood into Europe, particularly France, Germany, Sweden, and of course the UK. Other countries which have sane politicians and leaders, such as Austria, Hungary, Poland, Slovenia, Croatia, they have decided to close their borders, which is a smart move. Because look at countries such as France, the UK, and Germany, which have already imported tons of refugees. There have been mass rapes, molestations, murders, terrorist attacks have skyrocketed along with crime rates. What this has done is it's made Europeans feel unsafe. It's because this is kind of a repeat of what has happened in previous times in history. Muslims have tried to invade Europe before, and this is essentially happening all over again, except it's in the guise of migrants and refugees. Since the leftist government, which is dominated by liberals, has refused to ease the pace on migration, Europe is currently, how should I put this? It's gone to hell. This is what happens when leftists seize power in a major government. This has essentially caused Europe to spiral all the way down to hell. What this results in, essentially, it results in native Europeans feeling aliens in their own land. And lately, governments such as Angela Merkel's German coalition government has been feeding in the German people this relentless propaganda that German culture no longer exists or that the Islamization of their country is natural and normal. No, it isn't. As far as I'm concerned, I want Germany to stay German, and I want Europe to stay European. As a European myself, European by blood, I believe that Europe should stay native European. I don't want it to be invaded by Muslims, thank you very much. And especially not Muslims who follow an ideology that treats women like subhumans and throws gays and trans people off of buildings. Thank you very much. So, I just want to say that there is good news for this. With leftist power in the EU collapsing, along with the EU itself, thanks to Brexit, thank God, I think that this migrant crisis is going to end soon. And with the mounting pressure against the incompetent and people running the EU government, it wouldn't be any surprise if the EU started falling apart and the migrants from the Middle East finally began to recede back to where they came from. Now, before all of you start coming at me saying I'm Islamophobic and racist, I just have two things to say. One, Islam is not a race. I am not a racist. And secondly, if you don't mind, I personally would like to see Europe stay the beautiful Western continent that it is. No amount of brainwashing is going to change the fact that Europe will remain European. And there is one last thing that I just want to say. I have noticed a pattern throughout history in Europe. Haven't you noticed how there have been all these great empires? So many of them grew, seemingly unstoppable. They conquered so much of Europe. They seemed on the brink of conquering it. Yet, eventually, they just stagnated. Either their economy went to hell, or their leader died, or there was some sort of civil unrest. Whatever happened, all of these empires that came so close to dominating Europe, they stagnated, they stopped, they shrank, and they died. This is what happened with things like, I don't know, the Roman Empire, the Mongol Empire, the Nazi German Empire. Basically, every empire that has tried to conquer Europe has eventually died out. This is what happens to anyone who tries to take over Europe. And speaking of which, you know how I said the Muslims that are flooding into Europe came from the Middle East? Well, at one point, the Ottoman Empire, which was mostly based in the Middle East, tried to conquer Europe. They came this close to conquering Vienna, the gateway to the heart of Europe. The only thing that stopped them was a relief army that came in to defend the city. After that, the Ottoman Empire receded and never came back to Europe again. This is what happens every single time someone tries to take over Europe, whether it be a European or a foreigner. And just so you know, to the leftists out there and to the Muslim migrants, you will never conquer Europe. Europe will remain Europe. And no amount of brainwashing, no amount of force and law is ever going to change that. So you can forget it. This is Pioneer Productions, and I also wish that you like this video, subscribe to it, and of course, comment below. Pioneer Productions, over and out.